in terms of live performance on stage, where would you kind of weigh being able to hear well? It's probably a very obvious question, but you know.
It's it's absolutely most of the time, it's everything.
Hmm,
Um, there are some times where the mix isn't good and you can't get it right, and for whatever reason, there are restrictions where it just sounds bad in your ears no matter what you do, and you have to almost, like, block everything out, and it's really hard, but it can be done,
hmm,
but typically, if your ears aren't right, it it's really hard to focus on who you're singing about, like, all those things we talked about, my goodness, focus gets way more difficult. I would say, um, the most important thing it depends on it's song related, so there are some songs that I'll be leading and, um, the drummer is my click.
hmm,
There are some songs that I start off and it's maybe just me and pad and there isn't a rhythmic, like, thing that I can really rely on, and boy, if I get off, I screw everything up. Clicks coming up in that scenario for the whole set. The whole set, like, if I have a moment where I better stay on or for some reason I'm getting off, alright, clicks coming up, and I'm putting it right right down the center for me. The more you can pan things, the better. Some people just have everything like, "Yeah, whatever, just turn it up if I can't hear it." Um, when there's a ton of different channels coming through and a lot of different noise sources coming through, the more you can move stuff around, the better you're gonna be able to
hmm.
hear. I think that's the most slept on in-ear thing is panning stuff around so it has some room to where you can hear everything better.
Yeah, creating space, giving everything its own lane. I've mixed hundreds of singers over the years at this point, and sometimes, if I'm on monitors, sometimes I'll hit that solo button so that I could listen into that singer's mix exactly, and I'm, like, so apprehensive to hit it because sometimes it's insane. There's no logical reason that the what is in their mix should be in their mix,
Yeah,
and most of those times we're, like, mid-show or mid-worship service or whatever, and it's like, you can make a couple tweaks, but then that's throwing them off even more potentially because they've built their, like, tonal reference around this thing.
right.
Um, so what would you say you have to hear clearly in your mix to stay in tune? Like, what is your go-to instrument in your in-ear mix that you're like, "If everything else sounds bad, just for pitch reference, I'm gonna lock this thing and this has to be good."
Yeah, it's definitely piano for me. A
Mm,
lot of people, it's track, depending on what's in the track, but most of the time there is a pad or synth or something like that in the track that is pretty, um, driving in the pitch of the song or the tonal reference. But for me, it's gonna be the piano player because that's that's where I'm gonna hear the pitch.
Is there anything that you remove from your mix all the time or usually, like, is there a go-to?
If I feel cluttered at all, I'm taking out pretty much all the vocals except me and anyone else who's leading.
Hmm,
That's the first thing to go if my in-ear mix is a little crowded and I'm, like, struggling. The essentials, like, the non-negotiables, I guess, would be, uh, kick, snare, and hi-hat just for, basically my click. If the drummer can be my click, it feels so much better than a "ka, ka, ka, ka,"
mhm,
like, just driving into my ears. And the piano and everything else is gravy. Everything else, I'm gonna pan and move around and stuff, but my vocal, the piano, and then, the drums, like kick, snare, hat, those are, like, I have to have those. And if the kick, snare, hat isn't working or whatever, then it's the click. It's one of those 2 things that are very prominent. And then, of course, the guide, if I
mhm.
don't know, like, if I really need the guide, if I'm missing a cue or something like that, I'll crank the guide up. One thing that I think I've had a whole worship set fall apart, emotionally and spiritually because of this one thing, in my mix, and it's not even as much as like an in-ear like mix, like whether it's too loud or quiet, but whoever's on the talk back, if they are not in tune with the moment, and if they are not reverent of the moment, dude, it is my biggest pet peeve. Like, if someone's on the talk back, like, laughing and making jokes, um, during worship, especially during, like if it's, like, an upbeat, exciting song and they whatever, but if we're in a moment of, like, altar call or it's like a and I'm trying to figure out, like, where should we go, and they're screaming in the talk back trying to tell, like, the bass player to do something and they're just they don't have any tact. I wanna, like, rip my ears out and, like, walk off the stage, like, it is so detrimental.
100%. I think, it's dangerous for a lot of even myself. We also have talkbacks. So with great power comes great responsibility. It's like, yes, that is a tool that I could communicate to the band with in an absolute like worst case scenario. If someone's mic is on and they're about to sing in 5 seconds, I'll just say, "Hey, vocal five, your mic's on," like really quick,
Yeah,
but never in the middle of the thing doing it. We have a phenomenal MD at our church who, like you said, in those up moments, he is the hype man on stage. And I've seen it used in a good way to where he's like, hey guys, remember why we're doing this. Remember why we engage, or use really well ahead of service. Like, hey, find a person in your section and think about how their story relates to what we're doing right now for
oh,
like
that's
the
good.
bass player to do. It was so like I've seen it used really good, but it could be such a distraction for folks on stage too. If you said, like you said, if there's not tact and there's not like emotional intelligence there, it could be
Mhm.
a derailing thing. Those conversations to address that should happen like immediately. For anyone listening with that question, like, should I address this? Yes, absolutely address this. Um,
Even the tone of their voice.
even tone
Like,
of voice.
if you
And
gotta say something and it's in the middle of the thing, if you need to say it, you can say it as long as you can tell, like, you're being reverent for the, um, "Hey, we don't have lyrics for so and so," like, "Hey, we need these lyrics," or, "Hey, Joel's bass just went out," and, like, say what you need to say,
yeah,
but keep it there, not like, "Ah, da, blah, blah, blah," like, in this sweet moment. It's oh gosh.
100%. It's a tool to be used very intentionally. Last question on this one is how can a vocalist or anyone on stage, if they're having mix issues, advocate for their mix and ask for help without sounding like difficult? I know there's language around diva. I don't want to be a diva, so I don't want it's like, please, I need you to be able to hear so that you could do what you're called to do. How can they like approach that?
Yeah, I would just say, like, with with as with as much humility, and, like, defer to the mixing engineer and just be like, "This is what I'm hearing. Can you listen to my mix real quick and see?" Because 'Cause I've seen so many standoffs
Same.
with singers to in-ear monitors of, like, "I can't hear myself," and then they're like, "Well, you're all the way up." That's not the right answer for the in my opinion,
It's
for
not.
the mixing engineer. Like, even if you're listening and you're like, "My ears are bleeding because 'cause they're so loud." It's not the right answer. Like,
Yeah.
tell them like, "Well, you could try this, or I can try this. You can try to pan other things. You can try to turn everything else down." Um, mic placement, mic technique, where you're at, maybe more compression in their ears so that they can hear themselves when they're quiet and they can hear themselves when they're loud, and you can really crank up the master to their vocal, if the compression is up enough, like, help them out in those ways. The best mixing engineers and the best singers with this topic that I've witnessed are always cool and relaxed and not they're not there are a lot of insecurities in the whole world, and a lot of
Yeah.
mixing engineers have insecurities, a lot of singers have insecurities. This is not the place for insecurities to come out, where it's time to take your stand on how you know what you're doing and the singer's crazy. Like, "No, no, 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 no," or vice versa. "You know what you're doing and the mixing engineer's awful." "No, no, 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 no." Just communicate clearly and ask, "What do you think I should do? What do you think I should do?" "Turn your pack up?" "Oh, my pack's pretty loud. It's not master. I wonder if" and just stay in that place, and you guys can talk through things. But one thing I do hear all the time is I can't hear myself. I can't hear myself.
Mhm.
I can't hear myself. And, um, usually, and I struggle with this too sometimes, but usually I've found that when I'm really quiet, I can't hear myself. When I'm really loud, I'm too loud. And so whether that's compression or just me accepting like, all right, I'm just not going to hear myself super well when I'm soft. I've got to use my inner ear that can kind of hear myself
Mhm.
with my ears plugged, you know? Um, I don't know. What do you think? What have you had success with when in those situations?
I think you're spot on. Everything that we're talking about, I'm trying to coach myself on all the time, is asking questions, seek to understand, and saying, "Hey, like, there's such a big difference between, 'Hey, I need this thing and this is what's going on,' versus, 'Hey, I'm not able to hear myself. Can you listen in and tell me what you think about the mix?'" And then for a mix engineer, not to jump to conclusions like, "Well, I soloed it and it's making my ears bleed, so then that means you're hearing the same exact thing." I'm gonna ask questions to that musician or that vocalist. "Hey, how is the seal for your ears? Does it actually feel like your ears are plugged when your in-ears are in? Because if not, you're not gonna get any volume out of that." So, starting at the fundamental of, like, let's make sure that the one, if they're custom molds, that they're not plugged. Two, if they're universals and they're foam, that they're actually in your ear canal correctly so that they're blocking all the outside ambient noise. That's been the biggest thing that I found
Mm,
is the in-ears are not inserted correctly. It should be as if when you have in-ears in, it should be as if you have your fingers in your ears and they're completely plugged to outside noise, unless you have a special type of in-ear that has like a vent that's a little bit different. But for all the universals, it should be like your fingers are in your ears plugging them. If not, you're not ever gonna be able to get that loud enough and actually hear yourself because you have all of this stage noise also bleeding in there. So that's a big thing. And then I'll just kinda, like, do some investigative questioning, like you said, just asking questions. "Okay, where's your pack at?" Instead of jumping to conclusions, "Well, I'll just turn your master up and do the thing." "Hey, where's your master at if you're not hearing well?" And then I'm kind of looking at the gain stage for the pack. If everything is really, really hot going into their mix, there's a limiter. And so the definition in the mix is
mm,
now gone. Everything, essentially, if everything is all the way up, then everything is at the same exact volume, no matter how lightly someone is playing, because it's hitting a downstage limiter in the pack for protection of the ear in the pack. So I think what you said is perfect. Just anchoring on asking questions and seeking to understand the other person's perspective before jumping to conclusions has changed my whole career and everything I've done, even
wow.
in personal conversations with friends, you know?